It began in my mother's womb. I'm from Glade, Florida. I'm a small town in Palm Beach County. It's a migrant town. I think it's about 18 to 20,000 people in that town. I was born to my mother, Claudia Mae Longmire, and this is in the early 70s. This is the boom of the crack era. This is the time when heroin was just running rampant. And Glade being a migrant town, the migrant town that it is, where they harvest sugarcane because of the muck. You know, the muck is able to grow a lot of different types of produce. So you had the rice, you had the beans, you had the corn, and you had the sugarcane. So outside of the sugar mill and outside of that season, there wasn't much income flowing at that time. My mother grew up in a tough time. It was a hard time. She was dating my father. My father was somewhat of a pimp, but he was a heroin user, just like my mom was a heroin user at the same time. At the moment she became pregnant with me, my father left my mom. So my mom went into this depression. She was already a heroin addict. She was already experimenting with crack cocaine because this is the boom of the crack era. And you know, back in this time, they used to take the bush can and they would poke holes in the can and put ashes on the can and take a cigarette lighter. And they would actually smoke the crack that way. Here's my mom, you know, living in Glade in this migrant town, limited income, no man in her life. So she was pain-filled. And one way that she anesthetized her pain, I believe, was through the drugs. Because of the resources was limited, she sold her body to get her fix. She sold her body to pay her bills. Because now she, you know, she's pregnant with this kid. She was living in these apartments called SMA apartments. There was a lady named Miss SMA. She had a restaurant at the bottom. And there was these apartments, but most of the people inside, you know, were smoking crack cocaine, little smaller rooming houses, real small. My mom, you know, she birthed me. It was me and her living in this small rooming house. And she met this other guy that lived adjacent to Glade in a town called South Bay, Florida. You know, they say birds of a feather flock together. He was a heroin addict. He was experimenting with crack cocaine. One particular day, I was about 6 to 9 months old. My mom got so high on cocaine and heroin that her and a newfound boyfriend, they left me in this crack house, in this SMA apartments. I was there for about 3 or 4 days, crawling around the floor, no food, no parents, no protection, nobody there with me. This lady named Geraldine Jones, who later would become my mom, she came to those apartments looking for her brother who was dating my mom. And she knocked on the door of the apartment, and nobody answered the door. So she proceeded to the neighbors, which was, you know, they were strung out on drugs at this time as well. So she knocked on the door and she said, "Hey, have you seen my brother and his girlfriend and their son?" And they say, "We haven't seen them over the last 3 to 4 days." She say, "But did you see them with the baby when they left?" And they say, "No, we don't remember seeing the baby, but we know they've been gone 3 or 4 days." So she turned to walk away, and instinctively, she came back to the door, the apartment that I was in, and she grabbed the doorknob, and it was unlocked. She opened the door, she walked inside, and she saw me laying there lifeless. I was to the point of death. So she came in, and she grabbed me up, she took me to the waiting car downstairs, and they didn't take me to the hospital. They took me to South Bay to their mother. And they say when they picked me up, the feces on my rear end was so hard because I had been there so long. They said one more day I would have died. She got an emergency junction on me, a temporary junction from the judge to watch me and keep me until they find my mother. But my mother never came back, and the judge gave her a permanent stay. So she became the mother that I knew. Now, a lot of people would think at this point in time that my story would get better. A lady found you, you was rescued. But when I got in this family in South Bay, Florida, I still was having psychological issues and mental and emotional issues because my mom continued to shoot the heroin in her vein the 9 months of her pregnancy.